The Zombie Bar Mitzvah, a story from the House of Cain, by StoryMan-Jack. Mac shuffled into the little closet and closed the door behind him. "What the fuck is going on?" he asked. The man sitting on the floor of the closet looked up at him and chuckled. "Well, you want the long story or the short one?" Mac laughed. "Whatever we have time for." "Well, vampires," Jackson Cain said, pulling out his gleaming curved knives. "Vampires? I think I saw a fucking zombie, if I have my movie monsters right." "It always starts with the vampires, like most monsters," Cain said, standing. "Okay, just get to the point," Max said, cracking the door to peer out into the hallway of the hotel. "Vampires are crazy smart. They have a few really big vulnerabilities. Above all else, they need something to protect them during the day. They took their blood and manipulated it," Cain explained. "Wait, why would they do that?" Mac asked, continuing to watch the hallway. He heard something scraping and bumping at the far end. "A curse is in the blood. Everything is in the blood. Power, sin, it's all tied to the blood. Science has proven that out." "DNA?" Mac asked. "Yeah. So they manipulated their blood and came up with werewolves. But the wolves are imperfect, since they couldn't be controlled, and guardians need to appear human. So they tried it again." "Wait, how long ago was that?" "So long ago, Mac, that it wouldn't have any meaning to you," Cain said. "Then how did they know how to manipulate genetics?" Cain sighed. "Do you know what age this is?" "Age?" Mac asked. "Some ancient cultures call this the Fourth Age. This has all happened before, Mac, many times. There have been civilizations upon civilizations of humans, each wiped out to start over again. Imagine cataclysms so great that only a remnant of a remnant is remembered as a tale we tell school children about arks and animals. But you know, that wasn't even the first cataclysm. It was just the last. What will happen has happened, and what has happened will happen, Mac. It's written." "Oh?" Mac decided now was not the time to rethink his worldview. "When an immortal monster who is very intelligent has infinite amounts of time, he can find old things that are buried so deep." Cain shook his head. "Have you ever read Stoker's book?" "I think I watched the movie," Mac said with a straight face. "Well, you know the Renfield character?" he asked. "Yeah, a ghoul or something." "No," Cain said. "He's a zombie. The ideal zombie. One that has strength and stamina at superhuman limits and near invulnerability, but with semi-coherent mind to guide it. They are completely loyal and completely insane. They have lifespans once they're changed that only reach a few years, but they're also contagious. The problem is that you may have to get 100 infected before you get a Renfield. It takes a person of unique will and character to be twisted enough to stay on the cusp of complete insanity and yet appear to be sane. The monsters always twist the best of us," Cain said with a grimace. "The ones that can't be refilled become what? These things?" Mac asked. Cain nodded. The scraping was getting closer. "Yeah, so here's the thing. Cut off their heads. That's probably the easiest way to deal with them." He paused. "Actually, the easiest way is to save them by killing the Renfield that created them. Or the vamp. Once they are killed, they can revert back to normal if it's done in time. Unfortunately, if you don't kill the contaminant in time, it becomes permanent and they start deteriorating. Put that gun away and take one of my knives." Mac shook his head and pulled a hatchet from a sheath at his back. "I can use this." "Whatever. We have to find the Renfield. This is a trap, so there's at least one, but likely two. And don't let any more of one of these things near you, the mindless ones. There are only two dangers with them. If they get crowded around you, your flesh will be eaten while you die from bleeding out. Or, if you've been bitten, you can get contaminated. You'll become one of those things. Or, probably, most likely, a Renfield in about 12 hours. Well, fuck, Max said. Let me handle the Renfield. You just keep the mindless ones off my back, okay? Why? He asked. Kane pointed a knife at his chest. Wolverine powers, remember? Matt grimaced. That last cut you took on your chest took 2 months to heal. Wolverine would have been fixed in about 10 minutes, right? Can't have everything. The important bit, though, is that I do heal. And from some pretty massive trauma. You don't. Renfields are like... he groped for the word. Try thinking Mike Tyson times 100 or 1,000. I saw one throw a cement truck at a guy. Max followed. You've got to be kidding. Nope. Kane motioned for quiet as the scraping sound grew close. Mac jumped out of the closet and swung his hatchet. It took 3 swings to get through the unfortunate woman's neck, but Mac figured it worked. How long has she been dead? Mac asked, looking down at the body. Not dead, Mac. Infected, remember. Too long, and she's been infected too long. You see where she's already starting to deteriorate? You can see the muscle and tendons where the flesh is sloughed away from her jaw. Where would the main guy be then? Mac asked. Down in one of the ballrooms, probably. Kane said. Most likely he's infected a whole wedding or something. Mac rolled his eyes. Dude. Kane raised up. What? We're in a La Quinta Inn, Mac pointed out. So? Do you think any woman in her right mind would have her wedding or reception at a place like this? Mac, Kane said. This is rural Texas, where poor folk abound. I know a couple that had their wedding reception at a McDonald's, he laughed. That was fun. Focus, Mac growled. So, down on the main floor, he nodded. Take the stairs. We can't trust the elevators. Whoever set this up might have filled them with poor La Quinta Inn patrons who would likely to eat your brains. Without another word, the duo ran for the stairs. Mac nearly knocked over an ice machine on his haste to get down as many stairs as he could before the stairwell filled with zombies. They made it down 2 flights of stairs to the main floor and saw nothing. But once they reached that door, they noticed the entire place was filled with wandering, rapidly decaying people. Fuck, Mac said, pulling the door shut and ducking down as quietly as he could. How many? Jackson asked. I don't know, 30? It's like they have free continental breakfast down there or something, Max said, wiping the sweat from his forehead. Hold it together, buddy. I'll go out and count to 15, then follow me. If I'm down and you don't see me, head for an exit and get the fuck out of here. Then, have this place fucking napalm. The whole block. The whole city if you have to. Make sure nothing survives. Are you serious? I am. Even if one of these things gets away, we'll be lucky. I mean, this is a small rural town. But if one getting out could live in the wild, eventually it'll find its way to a city. Then boom. If that's the case, why haven't we seen it before? I mean, the world would be overrun by now. Vampires, Jackson said again. Normally, they destroy all the zombies, and also destroy the Renfields when they get close to their end date. Then why are you so worried? They'll clean it up for their mess if we don't, right? A year ago, I'd have said yeah. But the rules have changed. A year ago, they wouldn't have attacked anyone so openly, or set a trap for us like this. Better to be safe than sorry, though. Max sighed and stepped aside. We're just going to have to deal with the Renfields, Jackson, and kill whatever zombies we have to. Jackson was dressed in all black tactical gear, and he stepped out, the otherworldly silver of his twin kukri knives leading the way. He whirled as he stepped, past the door, and lopped one older gentleman's head from his body. In the same motion, he kicked out, pushing a large woman hard enough to knock 5 or 6 more of the zombies to the ground, giving him space. Then he went to work. Mac had little to do except fend the dregs off. Jackson Kane whirled and spun, flipped and dodged, and cut off head after head with the long, gleaming kukri knives. Backed down a few as he went, but it took too much time. I have to think about learning how to use a sword, he said to himself, finishing hacking off a young man's head. I've never been good at chopping wood, and this is just like chopping wood. He was winded. Soon he found that all the zombies in the immediate area were down, or at least nothing moved. Jackson had his ear pressed against one set of double doors. Yeah, it's in here. How do you know? Mac asked. I can hear him ranting. He's going on and on about how our flesh will taste, etc., etc., the usual. I wish we could know what else is in there. Well, one Renfield for sure, maybe two. And I figure at least 10 to 12 zombies. If there are 2 Renfields, though, we're likely to see 20 or more. So, if I look, the game is up. These bastards can hear and smell far better than even any animal. They don't see very well, but a Renfield will hear the click of the door, even if I couldn't hear it and I'm standing right here. Then maybe we should call in that napalm strike after all, Mac suggested. I'd rather not if I can help it, Kane said soberly. Besides, if we kill the Renfield, there's a possibility that the infected will get better. Remember, this is about blood. If the source dies, the infection dies. Mac took a deep breath. Okay then, I'm ready. Just keep the rabble off my back, will you? I wish Kit were here. He looked up with an even harder look on my face. But if you tell her I said that, I'll take your head off. You're the one who wanted a vacation, man. You chose to go hunting in rural Texas and got us stuck in this Lakina Inn full of zombies. Just keep them off, Jackson said again. And if there is a second Renfield, stay as far away from it as you can. Leave it to me. And run if you have to. And call down that napalm. Mac nodded and waited with his hatchet in one hand and his Glock in the other. Jackson pushed through the door. The lights had been blown out and small fires littered the ballroom where candles had been overturned. A few of the perimeter canned lights in the ceiling glowed a dull yellow, but it just left everything in flickering gloom. A man of about 5'7" stood up where the band had been playing earlier that night. It glared at Jackson with fire in its eyes. Drool ran down its misshapen face. It seemed to be trying to rant, but its insanity caused the foam in its mouth to garble everything that it tried to communicate. Oh shit, Mac said. What? Jackson said, keeping an eye on the Renfield on the stage. Mac held up a sign. It read, Welcome to the Schwartz Bar Mitzvah. And they let the zombies out to play, Jackson said, shaking his head. Mac saw the zombies, and one boy, dressed in a tuxedo, was among them. Damn, he swore. That's a kid. Jackson nodded, moving forward, slow step by slow step. Why aren't the zombies attacking? Mac asked. The Renfield's holding them off. He doesn't want them to attack until we're too busy to notice. Will we be? I will be. Those are your job. There's only 10 or so. Yeah, just 10. I'll trade my 10 for your 1. Mac, he looked at his friend in the eyes, soberly serious. I'm likely going to die. Right here, right now. Mac watched as Kane charged the stage. The monster in ripped faded suit pants and suspenders jumped down to meet that charge. Jackson sidestepped and took a glancing blow on the shoulder, but it was enough. Mac heard an audible pop, as if the shoulder either popped out of the socket or the socket itself shattered. Kane yelled in pain, but brought his right side around and sliced with his long knife. The blade hissed as it cut into Renfield's flesh deep into its neck, but that beast seemed to notice nothing and swung at Jackson again, this time landing a solid blow on the same arm. Mac heard an audible crack and knew his friend's arm was broken at least once. It was then the rabble attacked. Mac could worry no longer about his friend's desperate flight, since he would have one of his own soon enough. He took a page out of Kane's book, though, and ran up and kicked the first zombie that he came to into those that shambled behind it, taking half of the herd down on the floor. Huh, like flipping a turtle on his back, Mac chuckled. The downed zombies had a very hard time getting their bodies to move correctly and stand back up. There was a problem with the gloating, though. violating Murphy's rule of smug. You see, every time you get too smug, disaster will come down upon you threefold. Behind the downed zombies was another Renfield, but it wasn't like the one Jackson was fighting, and seeming to lose to. This man towered over 7 feet tall, and it had to weigh like 4, possibly 500 pounds. It was nothing but seething muscle. It reminded Mac of those old Bane comic books from his youth. Well, shit, Mac said and turned to run. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Jackson's left arm hanging limply, as his other kukri clenched in. As his other kukri was clenched in it, atop the first Renfield bearing down. With 2 smooth swipes, Jackson took the thing's head off. Some of the zombies behind Mac stopped and fell to the ground unconscious. There was that other Renfield, though, and it knew where Mac was. Try not to kill any more of the guests. I don't think they've been taken long enough. If we kill this other, they may all come back, Jackson yelled at him. That did 2 things. Well, one thing other than telling Mac not to hurt any of the zombies, it also made the other Renfield focus on Kane. The brute lumbered for the man with effectively 1 arm. Mac waited. Jackson stood unmoving like a statue as the brutish drooling monster rushed forward. Once the beast was in a few feet, Jackson leapt straight up, intending to land on the thing's back. What happened was that the monster stopped and swiped with his arm, hitting Jackson in the chest and sending the man into the concrete cinder block wall, leaving an impression as he sagged to the floor. Mac couldn't help it. He ran then behind the beast and slammed his hatchet into the center of its back, and it just bounced off. Well, shit, Mac said as he felt a truck slam into him. A brief yet lengthy flight across the room and into an exterior wall. His vision tumbled and went dark for a second. There was pain upon pain, and he couldn't tell where it was coming from. It took too many precious minutes for his sight to clear, but when it did, he found he could only see from one eye and felt blood rolling down his face. He put his hand up and realized the thing's fingernails had raked into his face so deeply that it had taken his right eyeball out of its socket. He looked up, hatred burning in his one good eye, blood leaking out of the dark and empty socket on the other. He stood and checked his Glock. He fired. He missed a lot, no longer having the depth perception he once had. The beast turned, and seeing him as a threat, began to run. This time it hit the Renfield in the chest, so he fired again, and the sheer power of the .45 caliber bullet stopped the beast for just a moment. That was all that Jackson Kane needed. He appeared at the top brute. He didn't look well and looked like he was about to pass out, but he slammed his blade into the top of the monster's head to the hilt. It protruded from the bottom of the monster's chin, all the way through the brain pan. Even so, the monster still took 3 steps toward Mac, its arms outstretched before it, and it fell. Jackson, rolling off, let its momentum pull the blade free of its skull. In his other hand, he still clutched the other knife, though Mac knew that hand was useless. Jackson had parted the thing's head from his neck as he collapsed. Mac took a moment to take his suit jacket off and rip a length of cloth out of the back. He wrapped it around his head so that he could still see out of his good eye, but limit any infection, though he knew that it was probably far too late for that. "Mac?" Jackson asked, his voice slurred. "Yeah, Jax. There's a money clip in my back pocket. Can you take it and find that kid whose bar mitzvah we just crashed and put it in his pocket before he wakes up?" "Why? Come on, man," Jackson grumped. Okay, let me find him first. See if it's even worth trying." Mac looked around all the bodies, alive and dead. He realized the fires that were burning were from those candles that Jewish people used in their ceremonies. He found a boy about the right age, long hair and a suit. He had a little stick-on name tag that read, Arnold Schwartz. And he breathed slow and steady. Okay, how much is in here? Mac asked once he had the clip. Oh, I don't know, 1,500? Mac Jackson said. Dude, this whole party didn't cost that much, Mac said. Kid was having a bar mitzvah in a La Quinta Inn, Mac. It got crashed by zombies, and he almost died. You could have killed him. There's going to be a huge mess to clean up, and if we can get out of here before people of authority start arriving, then he deserves something. Mac sighed and added some cash out of his own wallet. How much you putting in? Jackson asked. None of your damn business, Mac told him, just before he shoved the large wad of money into the boy's pocket. You're going to have to carry me, man. I can't move. Well, anything. Mac got close enough for Jackson to see him, and he saw his friend's face grow dark for just an instant, and then brighten. Dude, you look like Nick Fury now. You got the claw marks and everything. Mac grunted. Well, at least I got my eye eaten by an actual monster and not a poor excuse for a kitty cat from outer space, he said, and he lifted Jackson onto his shoulder. That movie doesn't exist to me, Jackson said, sheer granite in his voice. I never understood why you cared so much, Mac asked. About comics? Characters? Mac grunted. I grew up with my arm or leg getting broken every other week so I could learn how to fight without them. I wasn't exactly allowed to have friends. So, comic book heroes, other fictional characters, they were my friends, my idols, my myths. That's what I learned from Mac. And then they cast Brie fucking Larson for Captain Marvel. They're all morons. Hollywood is full of fucking morons. Mac grunted as he got them out of the building. And don't even get me started with what they did to Star Wars, dude. Max sighed. He knew this would go on for hours, just rant after rant. He smiled and said the one thing that might shut Jackson Kane up. Well, you know, if you were Ray, I wouldn't need to carry you. You wouldn't have been hurt. You wouldn't even gotten hit. You'd be carrying me. You know what? Fuck you, Mac. Just fuck you. The end. Once again, thank you for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. It either entertained or gave you some knowledge to help you. Please leave a comment and let me know how I'm doing, how I can do better. And remember, always like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.